Will Iran still get the bomb? My friends, this has been a roller coaster. The news of late, the last couple of days. In fact, uh, we had this yesterday, the big announcement of the peace deal, except it wasn't exactly a deal. What happened is Trump just came out with this announcement that we got this peace deal between Israel and Iran. Then Iran comes up and says Trump's a liar. There's no deal. And then Israel didn't even acknowledge it or say anything at first. And then Trump had these timelines in it. And basically, uh, the head of the foreign minister of Iran came out, Abbas Aragachi, and he said that, well, okay, Israel started this. So if Israel were to not bomb us, then we won't return fire. And Israel kind of sits quiet a little bit, and the next thing you know, Israel accuses Iran, I should say, of launching missiles to them, 2 missiles. There is a visual of one of these from an aircraft, from an air passenger plane. So apparently somebody launched, but then was it officially sanctioned launch? I mean, the whole command structure in Iran is basically fractured, and it's kind of a mess over there, because they've been bombed. So it could be that somebody just didn't get the word or misunderstood commands and launched. I don't know. Maybe he was commanded to launch. We don't know what the situation is there. The fog of war is thick. However, Israel decided to take that as an excuse they were looking for to pound Tehran real hard. And so Trump wakes up the next morning, he's furious because he came out and said, well, there won't be any more war. That we think this peace ceasefire will turn into an end of the war, and they'll never fire at each other ever again, blah, 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 blah. Just kind of a gushing thing that he put out initially. I thought when I first saw his announcement yesterday, I started to rush in and try to do an announcement on that. And then I said, wait a minute. There's too much smoke in the air. I'm not going to talk about this in great detail yet. I kind of alluded to it in my video I posted on the sleeper cells. I even thought about delaying posting that video and come up with another one. And I said, nah, this is too much in the air right now. This thing is too fishy. Something weird's going down. So I'm going to wait and see what happens. Well, the next morning when Trump wakes up, he's furious that both sides are firing at each other. And he particularly called Benjamin Netanyahu and supposedly gave him the what if. I mean, it was the first time he ever live on television dropped F-bombs. So of any American president. So that was a historical first. Not a good one, I might add. It's kind of talking like a Democrat. But anyway, we got quite a few people in the house already. I'm going to put on my chat room in my phone so I can keep up with this as I talk through it. Now, my friends, the case is that President Trump, Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Hegseth all said that we completely destroyed the capability of Iran to produce nuclear weapons. Well, then up comes the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was, in some circles, that position's called the head of the military, although that's kind of refuted somewhat. But anyway, General Dan Kane, or Raisin Kane, he said, well, it's too early to tell. We got to do damage assessments. Like I posted in my video right after the bomb that were announced that the bombs were dropped. I said, we'll have to wait and see what the damage assessments are. That little video I made on that. So, of course, then, we didn't even know what went in. We didn't know what was dropped. There were all kind of conflicting stories out there on that, and they were all wrong. We didn't know until the next morning when the Pentagon had a press briefing. But all that aside, so now the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, has come out and said, at best, we probably just set the program back a few months. To which Trump was furious when that got out, but it may be true because the Iranians said, hey, we moved our materials before the facilities were bombed. And furthermore, there was those pictures of the 16 trucks that a lot of people have seen. The 16 trucks that suggested that something was being moved. Well, maybe in this case, it's come out since then that maybe nothing was being moved up by those 16 trucks. Maybe they were selling the facility up. But here's the funny thing. Iran knows when you see the intelligence satellites that fly over, the ones that take the photographs, they're in low Earth orbit. So they can get really good photographs. But they're not like geostationary satellites. They're not overhead all the time. In fact, you may only get one pass in a day or one every so many hours. Even the T groups, that rhymes with era, T that rhymes with era, for decades has known how to track those satellites and know when they're going over so they can hide their stuff when they're going over. They know how to do that. In fact, now there's websites that you can track a lot of satellites on. It's on the internet. Back in the 80s, I ran some software called Mirror Watch, and I got orbital elements from Goddard Space Flight Center so that I could track when the Mir space station went overhead with software on a Commodore 64 computer. There was nothing on the internet like that back in the days. I actually had to manually enter the numbers, but it was doable. Well, today, look, like I said, the groups have known this stuff. The ones that are sailing out for peace, they've known this stuff for decades. So you think a nation that can launch satellites like Iran, would not know about this? Of course, they know when things are flying over. They would not have shown their hand with a critical operation like moving stuff out. See, the thing is, the tunnels that go in to those facilities are pretty large. They could actually drive the trucks in to load them, and they could actually be inside when they're loading. So when the satellite goes over, nobody sees them. So they could have went in when the satellite wasn't over, and it exited when the satellite was over. They could, 30 to 31 trucks could have taken everything in that facility out. Now, how do I come up with that? Greg, how do you, and in fact, since we've already seen 16 trucks there that were probably sealing the entrances to safeguard the perhaps possibly empty facilities, it's quite doable that they may have in fact already got that stuff out, just like they said. And of course, why would they not want to? They had the means, they had the motivation, and they got trucks. They knew there's likelihood that place would be struck, and if they want to preserve what they had, they were likely to get it out. They could have got in there. I mean, they totally had the means to do it. And they knew the probability of those places getting struck was pretty high because they knew that Donald Trump was mulling doing this, and they suspected that even before then, that would happen. In fact, that's why they built the places, 300 feet underground, was to be impervious to our GBU 57 massive ordnance penetrator. They tried to design it where that device couldn't take it out. Although with double strikes in the same hole, it's possible that at least a lot of damage could have been done to those facilities, and indeed a lot of damage was done. Those were massive explosions. The mission that the B-2s carried out was impressive. There's no way around it. It was an impressive mission. But did it take out the nuclear program in Iran? There's the question. Did it actually take it out? Well, now just kind of boil down to it. Let's talk some things that you're not going to hear on any other YouTube channel. Right here, I'm an engineer. So here's the facts. So at the time they were saying 400 kilograms. And I kind of rounded it down, just my calculation, to 800 pounds. Actually, it's 880 pounds. You now hear 900 pounds or 400 kilograms. It's either 400 kilograms or 880 pounds. But I did this calculation based on 800 pounds. So it's not that far different, just a little bit more. But that would be 363 grams if you wanted to look at the metric side of it. But anyway, if you get it, the uranium-235 enriched to 60%. That's called high-assay low-enriched uranium. And it weighs about 19 grams, not milligrams, but grams per cubic centimeter. Centimeters kind of small. So the volume of 363 grams of that stuff, this is dense. Think about how dense lead is. You pick up a little lead weight, it's real heavy in a small volume. Well, it's the same way with uranium, more so. So what it works out to is if you took the volume of 363,000 grams, I'm still sticking with the 800 number here, and divided it by 19 grams per cubic centimeter, It works out to 19,100 cubic centimeters, or just 19.1 liters. I mean, 2-liter bottles of cola you had. So what that works out to is about 5 gallons of metal. You can put it in a 5-gallon bucket. Well, okay, we got 80 pounds, another 80 pounds. Okay, it's going to be heaping over maybe. Of course, if it was a Walmart bucket, you wouldn't pick it up being that heavy. It would rip apart. But the volume is small. That's what I'm getting. The actual volume of all, it can make 10 nuclear bombs, 10 atom bombs, but it's still a small volume. But Greg, you got to shield it. Oh yeah, you got to put shielding around it. So, you could use like lead or depleted uranium for the gamma ray shielding. You can use polyethylene or berated polyethylene for the neutron moderation. So you might have layers of steel, lead, and polymer for shock protection, because you also want to protect the stuff, right? So a small quantity of about 800 pounds of this stuff could be transported in a Type B BU cask, certified for physical transport material. And it would weigh, all the shielding that you might need for that would weigh, say, 5,000, depending on which pathway you took, 5,000 to 300,000 pounds, or 2.5 to 15 tons. Well, let's just round it up and say it's, in the 30,000 pound range. So, that guy's a high security transport and armed escorts with satellite tracking and all that was what we would use in this country. Now, I don't know with escorts. Now, maybe in Iran you wouldn't use all that. But essentially, you can put all this on the back of one flatbed truck easily. One semi truck or one good military truck could transport that entire package. Yeah. So, what about the centrifuges? So, they might have had up to 3,000 centrifuges in Fordo, mainly models 1R1, based on the Pakistani P1 design, actually, is where they got their technology for those. And in late 2022, 2023, reports had indicated there were about 1,000 to 1,200 operation centrifuges. So 3,000 might be at the outside range. So we're rounding up weight. We're taking the worst case scenarios here. So these centrifuges are about 1.5 to 2 meters tall, about 20 to 25 centimeters diameter, which is small, not that big. They weigh about 100 to 200 kg per unit, and most engineers do the math and metric, but 200 kg. That's you got 2.2 pounds per kg for the kilogram. So that's over 400 pounds there, about 440. So to be cautious and be conservative, the 200 kilogram unit with 3,000 centrifuges, 3,000 times 200 kilogram is 60,000 kilograms, or 600,000 kilograms, or 600 metric tons. Now, the volume, as I mentioned, was kind of small. So actually, if you had a standard 53-foot semi-trailer, each truck could easily carry 18 to 25 metric tons. So that's what we got to deal with totally here. So if you're looking at by weight, and so you're trying to limit it 20 tons per truck, it would take about 30 trucks to move it all. About 30 trucks. If it were just volume, it would be 3 to 5 trucks. So the volume isn't that big. It's the weight. So on the outside, 30 trucks could have moved all this. Probably less if they didn't have that much stuff. And, I was conservative on the weights of all this stuff. So think about that. So what we saw out there, 16 trucks, if you doubled that over the few days prior to the trucks that came in, so we've already seen them assemble 16 trucks once. So if they did that a couple other times and were wary of the satellites like they would have been in that kind of operation, they could have totally snuck all that stuff out. We never would have known it. They could have loaded them inside the tunnels. So that's what it boils down to. It was totally doable. No more than 30 trucks, really. Probably not even that many. So the idea they could have moved it out, plausible. Like I said, they had the means and they had the motive. Did they do it? They claimed they did it. Of course, Vance and Hegseth said, well, we believe it's all buried. Based on what? Wants? Political ideology? Where do you come up with this? You believe it's all buried? Maybe it was. Let's hope so, but we can't bank on that. So that's what you got to take into account, my friends. So, like I said, the satellite passes sometimes one a day or once every few hours. They would know when these satellites were going overhead, so they could have easily concealed the movement of those trucks. Now, what do they have in terms of underground tunnel networks? They got missile cities. We know they got these missile cities buried in depths of up to 500 meters. Some of them a lot deeper than Fordo. They got these tunnels, and you've probably seen the video if you ever watched Canadian Prepper, which now he's got Prepper News Channel. He's many times shown videos, and I've shown them once or twice myself, of them going through these tunnels with just missiles lined up on each side. So they're called missile cities, and they got dozens of these things apparently, with multiple launch shafts where they can, sneak the stuff out and launch it. So these are things to be concerned about. Plus, there's this whole idea of secret facilities. We don't know what, but we do estimate that at a minimum, it's likely that they have 30 to 100 miles of these tunnels. Did we go after tunnels? No. Did we go after any suspected secret facilities? No. We went for the ones that we knew about, which they were all initially secret. Iran didn't declare those at first to the IAEA. They were kind of forced to after intelligence had discovered the first facility, Fordo, actually getting buried. They built it and then buried it. So now, though, they're tunneling. So they may just tunnel into stuff with their tunneling gear, and good Lord only knows what is down there. We don't have the same kind of satellite intelligence for where the tunnels are running when they're using tunneling gear. So, yeah, Fordo first went into operation in 2011. They started construction, they think, in 2006, 2007, and it wasn't, the intelligence discovered this back in 2009 and reported to the IAEA, and they were kind of forced to declare it then. So Fordo, Laxer, Abad, parts, and there's other facilities that were discovered. So now there are reasons to suspect additional sites. And again, it's these highly redundant tunnel networks. Iran has dozens of these mountain tunnel complexes with missile cities that we know. And some may include undisclosed enrichment cascades. I mean, would they really want to admit everything they got? What do you think? Incomplete declarations. This is another reason that we think that maybe they're hiding stuff. The IAEA has repeatedly stated that Iran does not provide full transparency. And as of 2023 to 2025, their inspectors had limited or no access. Now, you're hearing Grossi, with the head of the IAEA now, it's his first saying, we don't know what the damage is. And he looks at the satellite photos and says, well, we think they were mostly destroyed, those facilities. But he's basing this off of just satellite photographs. So he's not on site. He can't tell. They've asked to be permitted in to see these. And you think Iran is going to let them go in and look at this stuff now after the IAEA disclosed so much stuff to the world community that led to this attack in part? I don't think they're getting in again. I don't think they're getting in again. So, hey, we got Mountain High Time in the house. Got a great channel there. I like when he mixes in the music on his channel. Anyway, so satellite evidence. Several deep excavation projects near Natanz, Isfahan, and southeast Iran have drawn scrutiny. There's major deep underground facility south of Natanz discovered in 2021, 2022. It's buried under 300 meters of rock, too deep for the standard bunker busters. Technical capability. Iran has thousands of the IR-1, IR-2, and IR-6 centrifuges. They are experienced with modular mobile enrichment cascades. That's where you put these things in series, right? They have skilled personnel and domestic centrifuge production capability. So even if they were all taken out, they know how to build these things and build them at scale. Hey, Ransom, good to see you. That's Ransom, the mountain high time, if y'all remember Ransom. So check his channel out, guys. Rodney. All right, so I will check the chat room more once I get through the news stuff here. But Western intelligence and IAEA have suspicions. U.S. And Israeli intelligence assessments have long considered the possibility of undeclared enrichment facilities in Iran. Now, as you might remember, Iran had just came out prior to being bombed and says, "Oh, we're going to open some new facilities." You're not going to know about. They kind of hinted at that. Well, they suspected they already had them. So, in fact, in 2018, when Mossad did the raid on Iran's nuclear archive, they got documentation that suggested that Iran had plans for multiple parallel fuel processing projects. In pre-2003, intentions to build 5 enrichment sites, but only 2, Natanz and Fordow, are known. So the IAEA reports have repeatedly stated that they cannot verify the absence of undeclared nuclear material activities in Iran. So there you go. So why might Iran do this? Well, survivability. Hidden sites are better protected from U.S. or Israeli strikes. Breakout capability. Iran could amass enough highly enriched uranium, which is called HEU, for a weapon without triggering IAEA detection. You might recall, IAEA said they found some particles, just particles. They were enriched to like 83.7, I believe, percent. That is more enrichment than our little boy bomb had that we dropped on Nagasaki, which was at 80%. But they only have particles. But what we know is that Iran has been playing shell games with this stuff, moving it around. So maybe that was some residue that they did not intend to get discovered. Maybe they have uranium enriched to the full capacity. We don't know. We just flat don't know. But the conclusion that we got to take from that is that it is highly probable that Iran has at least one undisclosed fuel enrichment facility, and quite possibly more. Again, this is supported by their history of secrecy and deception, which, that's part of that's the game, is deception and all these kind of things. The presence of deep underground construction not accounted for, the technical feasibility of covert enrichment using small centrifuge cascades, and the repeated inability of the IAEA to verify the peaceful nature of Iran's entire program. Now, I got to agree with Vance on this one when he said, if Iran intended this to be peaceful, why do they enrich to 60%? Why do they put it in facilities buried 300 feet down in rock in a mountain? That's not the way you run a peaceful program. Wow! Hey, we got a super chat here. We got a good super chat from Ransom. Thank you, Ransom. Appreciate that super chat. Yeah, something here go. What is that? Okay. Anyway, much appreciated, Ransom. So anyway, why would we be concerned with Iran? I mean, really and truly, we got nuclear nations. We got North Korea. There's other nations that can go nuclear. On the conventional side of it, there's the fear that if Iran gets the bomb, that Egypt and Saudi Arabia says if Iran gets the bomb, we're getting it. So it's proliferation in part. Part of the concern is proliferation. But then there's this deal about the 12th Imam. So there's this thing called the 12er Shia Islam, where they recognize this 12th Imam, Muhammad ibn al-Assad al-Mahdi, excuse me, also known as the hidden Imam, or Imam al-Zamana. Now, he's to the Shia a messianic figure who they believe will come back and establish justice, whatever that means, for the Shia faith, for Islam, and establish it worldwide. So it's believed he's in this well called the Jamkaran Well, which is in the community of the small city of Qom, Qom, in Iran, which is, some people say it's not even a city. but small place. But it's considered a sacred well. It's located in the Jamkaran Mosque complex. The mosque was built around this well later. So it's taken that, by the, run-of-the-mill Shia that, he's just going to come back and establish justice. And the idea that a nuclear war is required for this, but some people teach, is considered to be a misconception that conflates the mainstream Shia theology, with fringe elements. However, the problem is, this is the belief of the IRGC. Many of the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, follow this doomsday type splinter belief on this. And in fact, Ahmadinejad, previous, it's called apocalyptic activism. And Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, previous president of Iran, talked about this a lot. In fact, he put a lot of money into that mosque and roads from there, and Iran's built this stuff up so that when the Mahdi comes back, he's got this big parade route, basically. So that's what I hear. Anyway, supposedly not mainstream Shia doctrine. It is doctrine that a lot of the Iranian leadership apparently subscribes to, at least according to some sources. And that's what scares a lot of people, is they think that he's going to come back in a time of great destruction, chaos, maybe nuclear war, and some of them believe they have to bring this about to get him to come back. And so this idea of wiping Israel off the map, which is something that often referred to, might be seen by some of them as the steps to that. And that's why a lot of people, particularly the Israelis, are so concerned with Iran having a bomb. Would they step up to that? I don't know. They may have the bomb already and they haven't used it yet, So you got to remember that actually the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, actually has fatwas out where he says that, the nuclear bomb is anti-Islamic or something like that. But, a lot of his hardliners said we should develop this just to prevent the kind of thing that just happened to Iran. So they're going to have a lot more sway after this. And after he's been confined to his bunker for a couple of weeks, we might see something different come out. He may embrace the bomb, and they may go for broke, and they may be out for vengeance. You can bet that now they would totally conceal their program. The IAEA is not going to know any jack diddle about it. And if they get wind of it, they're not going to be permitted to go in and sit, I don't think. They won't want the United States or Israel to have a clue what they're doing. Although they did admit that they were going to proceed with their program without interruption, their enrichment program. They've always said, well, it's for peaceful purposes. Now, enriching uranium to 60%? No. They've actually tested some of the bomb components, like the fusion technology and some of this stuff. That's a known factor. So, could they get the bomb? And if so, what does that mean? Well, supposedly, according to J.D. Vance, if they actually proceed to it, we'll hit them again. So is that in the cards? Is it already cooked in, baked in? We don't want to be in a war like that. We don't need, especially, an air war is one thing. You can really make someone take to the bunkers. But until you get somebody to jerk people out of the bunkers, you don't win that war. It's like the Japanese in the islands, the Pacific. We could fly over and bomb them all day long. We could hit them with shells from our ships back in the day and pummel the heck out of those islands. But until you had somebody who would go into those tunnels and get them out, you didn't win the battle. So let's hope that we don't come down to that. A lot of people were hoping that the people in Iran would be able to rise up and overcome the Ayatollah regime. But apparently the Ayatollah, the regime is now cracking down on those people, and they're in fear right now. They're kind of hiding out. So It looks like the Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi, and his aspiration, he was calling for revolution, all that. Apparently, that's all washed out now. And maybe he'll get another chance down the road, but he's not the perfect choice unless he's really just going to have an interim government to hold an election, because nobody needs a king. Nobody needs a king. Oh my gosh. So anyway, let me find my Zoom page here. I'm going to show y'all just a few things. And hang on. I am going to do a share screen, show y'all a few articles real quick, and then we're going to go into just chatting for a little bit. Not long. I got to get up early in the morning. It's already late. Of course, this is your sites here. This is exclusive. U.S. intel assessment suggests strikes on Iran did not destroy nuclear sites. And on the other hand, even if it did, was anything there? Were they empty? U.S. military strikes on the 3 facilities last weekend did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program, and likely only set it back by months, according to an early U.S. intelligence assessment. And again, this was the one done by the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Pentagon's intelligence arm. Back when W was president, he only would go to the DIA. He wouldn't listen to the CIA. He didn't trust the CIA, which his dad used to run. Wasn't that funny? But anyway, so, and now it's come out that Iran's Fordo nuclear site likely sealed up before the B-2 strikes. And that's what they think these trucks are doing. And they do look kind of like they might be dump trucks. And there were bulldozers seen on site. So maybe that's what they were trying to do, is preserve it and mitigate damages that the bombing would do. Why were they doing this? Because they knew the bombing was coming. So if they knew the bombing was coming before you sealed it up, would you get the stuff out? You would think. You would think. So this whole idea they got it out, probably true. But why would Iran admit that? Why would they say their enrichment facility programs continue, other than not wanting to bow down to having all their stuff enriched by another country? Of course, they could claim they were doing that, for the purpose of getting a treaty and take some materials from somebody else while they're still running the back door, enriching stuff. So they're not all that, the Iranians are really intelligent people, but I think they're missing something there in the negotiation pot. Anyway, so right now the ceasefire seems to be holding at the moment. But according to this article, the Tehran's nuclear ambitions are far from dead, which would probably crack the ceasefire at some point in the future. Like I said, J.D. Vance says, hey, they start making them again, they'll be hit again. And now we are in that scenario where things don't want to advance. I'm going to stop the share. Hello. And go back to share again. Let's do it again. Ding, 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 ding. That seems to be the prescription when I run into this. Oh, that's not what I want to see. There we go. So there's one scientist who's claiming the concrete, they're using a military-grade concrete that Iran has developed that's supposedly strong as steel. And they're claiming that the bunker, this one scientist is claiming that this concrete may be unbreakable by those bunker busters. So there's a few articles out there on that topic. That's in Popular Science or Mechanics, let's see, which I got to subscribe to get. Anyway, according to this article and the Telegraph, the Tehran has smuggled uranium and secretive centrifuges. Yeah, so they're claiming their capabilities are not destroyed. But this wasn't the smuggling operation. This was the sealing operation, apparently. Like I said, you probably wouldn't have seen the smuggling operation at all, because they're not going to do that kind of thing when the satellites are overhead. The fact that these satellites were allowed to photograph this means that it wasn't that critical an operation. Yeah, just burying something? Yeah, okay. So Iran is assessing the damage to its nuclear industry following Israel's 12-day campaign. The plan is to prevent interruptions in the process of production services. This is from Mohammed El-Salami, El-Salami, however you say that. That's what he said Tuesday, which is still today for me, which is now yesterday for most of us. But he said the plan is to prevent interruptions in the process of production and service. So, and there's been other reports that, hey, they're going to continue this uninterrupted. But why would they even tell you that, huh? And once again, I'm frozen up. Stop the share again. This thing's going nuts with me. This computer is got issues now beyond anything I've ever seen before. So here's another article. This is where Vance went to Fox News, and they asked him, Bayer said, so you totally obliterated this thing. And Vance says, yes. Do you know for sure that all the highly enriched, where all the highly enriched uranium was? And, Vance pops back, JD Vance, saying, well, Brett, I think it's actually not the question before us. The question for us is, can Iran enrich the uranium to weapons grade level? And can they convert that fuel to a nuclear weapon? So he's kind of dismissing it. But later in here, he says, yeah, we believe it was buried. A lot of people are taking issue with that. So now here's something that I have often spoke about, going way back. So ever since we started playing whack-a-mole with the Houthis, with our valuable strategic missiles, I said we're just wasting resources that we ought to save for what looks like an upcoming war with China. We're going to run short real fast. U.S. Navy, and now finally, the Navy's coming out and saying this. I've been saying it for a long time, but now the Navy is confessing this. U.S. Navy warships are firing top ballistic missile interceptors at an alarming rate, according to this admiral. So, during a Senate Appropriations Committee hearing, Hawaii, Senator Brian Schatz said U.S. forces have expended large amounts of munitions to defend Israel from Iranian strikes. And that was confirmed by Admiral James Kilby, acting chief of naval operations. And he says, we are, to your point, using them at an alarming rate. So there you go. Just what I've been saying all along. And again, I'm stuck. Cannot advance here. I got some real memory issues here. This computer is failing on me. It's brand new. I got an attached camera. The internal camera quit working. My shift key is getting stuck. It's a brand new computer, and she's getting on the fritz. She'll probably quit on me entirely here in short order. All right, let's see. And this is where the top general, Dan Kane, was saying, hey, we can't confirm. And I'm stuck again. Wow, it's getting worse every time I do this. Getting worse every time I use this computer. Wow. And every time I come back, it closes the page it was on. Wow. I like to save those pages. I'm not able to save them now. Wow, because it's wiping them out as I'm presenting them. Israel warns Iran that they seek to end the war within days. Now, this is what came out prior to Trump really castigating Bibi Netanyahu. First, he said, well, look, Iran violated a ceasefire, and he started talking about a campaign of bombing Iran and Iran in general for several more days. And he said, then we'd have the end of the war. Well, Trump called him this morning and apparently really gave him the what to, and said, stop the planes, bring them home, do not drop the bombs. And apparently there is a political cost to Netanyahu, even internally, to going against Trump within his own country. Of course, he also knows that you don't bite the hand that feeds you. And he might have been running up against, losing support from Trump. But he also knew there was also, the reports I've read said that there was also internal problems with him going up against Trump, which might suggest that he's really been on the leash from Trump all along. They've acted like they had this big disagreement, big spat, and Netanyahu was running around doing whatever he wanted to, whenever he wanted to. And that may have all been a ruse. And if that's the case, that he's got that leash on him, as has been suggested by certain articles, I said if, then all that other stuff is just theater. In fact, there seems to be a lot of theater from all sides with regards to these wars. So he backed off and he said, Israel has removed itself from the immediate existential double threat, both in the nuclear domain and the field of ballistic missiles. Basically, saying they took out the ballistic missiles in the nuclear threat. So apparently, he's decided to call it off now. The multi-day campaign after pressure from the T-men. And again, there we go. So this is an article about the 12th Imam Messiah theory I mentioned to you earlier. And this article is a little more pointed about it than I was in my assessment. So, but it does make what if a state doesn't fear destruction? What if it welcomes it, viewing it as a gateway to divine salvation? And that apparently is where the Iranian leadership is, according to some sources. And that's what Israel fears. Anyway, well, we got a breaking news here showing the real peaceful intent of the Iranian program. I'll play this a little bit for you here. Watch this.
Whether Iran are trying to create a nuclear weapon. So I booked a tour at one of their uranium enrichment facilities to see what was really going on. Here we make nuclear energy for very peaceful use only. You see, microwave, rice cooker, washing machine, very normal things.
This is not bomb. This is giant water heater for entire village. Very efficient.
Nothing to see here. We are just cooking lentils. Yes, only civilian. We even use uranium to toast bread now. Very modern. Speculation as to whether Iran is trying to create a new.
All right, we gotta have a little fun along the way, right? Okay, this might be a little offensive, but when I was in the Army, was during the Iranian hostage crisis. And I was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, in direct support of the 82nd Airborne. I lived off base with my wife at the time and my baby son. And we were sequestered on base. I couldn't go home for 2 weeks. I did not have a bunk at the barracks because I didn't live in the barracks. I was the unit armorer. So I stayed in my arms room. That's where I slept, on the floor of the arms room with all the rifles. And we had to do our wills. We took our shots. Every day the crescendo built up. They told us we were going to war. You'd go to bed at night and dream about combat. Oh yeah, at the time the popular song on it was a twist on the Beach Boys' "Ba Ba Ba Iran." Yeah, they changed it to "Bomb Bomb 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 Iran." That was the song at the time. I don't know if I can even play this without getting a hit on this. Come to think about it, I might get a hit if I play this. I don't know if that's copyright. Probably is copyright. Probably can't play the music here. But anyway, you can find it here on just search on X for. I heard that there's a version with Trump dancing to the music, but just put in "Bomb Bomb 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 Iran." It'll come up, and it shows the B-2s taking off and dropping bombs to that ditty. So that was a big song back in the early 80s, 79, late 79, 80, maybe 81. But we were all packed up, ready to go. Like I said, every day the crescendo was building up higher and higher. We're going to war. We're going to war. And I was a little bit tiffed because it was Jimmy Carter's ragbag army. And I had 250 people in my unit. We only had 200 M16s assigned to us. I was always told if we went to war, they'd assign us all new weapons. They didn't. They packed us up with what we had. The problem was I only had about 40 functional M16s. Why only 40? Because I couldn't get little bitty petty parts. The main parts that I could not get were the springs that behind the injector that were almost microscopic. You print your spring in your ballpoint pen's about 4 times or 5 times bigger, maybe 10 times bigger. Itty bitty springs. A bucket of them back in the day might have cost you $1. But and the extractor, which was like a flat spring. So you had the extractor spring that pulled the round out of the chamber, and the ejector spring that was a little pin with a spring behind it. It pushed that round and flipped it out. So you pull it out and you flip it out, and then you load a new round. Without those two springs, your rifle are no worky. Cheap, 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 cheap parts. Well, I couldn't get them. The whole time Carter was president, I couldn't get them. What happened in that, I was furious. I said, we got to go to war with this. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. No, our stuff was packed up at Pope Air Force Base, ready to go. And like I said, the crescendo was building every day. And then all at once, they just said, okay, everybody can go home now. I go, what? I was going to war. We just go home. All at once is off. I was like, okay. I went home. I laid down in my bed and I was half asleep. You know, when you think you're going to combat, you're dreaming about combat. You start dreaming about combat. And so I'm, half asleep, half awake, and I'm hearing this stuff about an Iranian a busload of Iranians getting captured and planes crashing and blowing up and helicopters. And at first I thought I was dreaming because that's stuff I'd been dreaming. And then all at once I realized this is on the radio. I shot out of bed, expected my phone to ring any second, said, Greg, get your back in here. We're going to war. But that didn't happen. I got listening to the news report and I thought, what? You got to be kidding me. The whole thing fell apart. They had helicopters blowing up. They couldn't, they had a whole bunch of helicopters that were going to take in, but I think they most of them had to stay behind because they didn't have the spare parts. One of the ones that went in had a cracked rotor. There were all kinds of spare parts and maintenance issues with all that stuff. So that was a lot of what caused that whole program to crash. That and bad command and communication between the different units that were supporting the Delta Force back in that day, because the Delta Force was just stood up and hadn't ironed all that stuff out. And it was terrible. It was horrible. It was a fiasco. So, Americans were lucky to get out of there. They got in and were just lucky to get out. But we lost lives in that failed hostage rescue attempt. Well, apparently they were weighing a bigger effort, sending in the 82nd Airborne, at least major elements of it. We were packed and ready to go. If we weren't part of the consideration, we wouldn't have been packed up. So it was really strange, really tragic. And I don't know. So that's why this song kind of just brings back memories to me, but it's kind of not what we want to do. We don't want to bomb Iran, to be honest. I don't think so. Anyway, some other news. Crockett and AOC complaining that they were given no intelligence. Are they born with any? All right, let's move on. Guys, what if all this goes down and we're not out of the woods yet, and we may be at war with China soon, so do consider gardening. It's the best prep you can ever do is growing your own. There'll be links in a video for True Leaf Market and Eden Brothers where you can buy non-GMO seeds, heirloom seeds you can plant and get the same thing back that you grew, which you don't get with hybrid seeds. Anyway, check it out. You deserve that for yourself. And here's more of the trucks. Or something else in this article. I don't. Anyway, there was something else in this article I was wanting to show. I don't remember what was it. Scroll to the top. Anyway, we'll skip that because I already talked about it. So, Saeed Abbas Aragachi, he said, as Iran, this is the foreign minister of Iran. Right now, he seems to be the spokesperson for Iran since the Ayatollah's hiding in his bunker because the Israelis have been trying to take him out. Maybe he'll come out now. As Iran has repeatedly made clear, Israel launched a war on Iran, not the other way around. As of now, there is no agreement on any ceasefire or cessation of military operations. However, provided that the Israeli regime stops its illegal aggression against the Iranian people, basically is saying that they wouldn't launch anything. So, anyway, but he continued after that tweet, said the military operations of our powerful armed forces to punish Israel for its aggressive aggression continued up to the very last minute. So, anyway, he's still, and they also fired on guitar, whatever you want to call it. You can't pronounce it in English. I got a co-worker who was from there, and I've never heard it on TV or anywhere pronounced correctly. I said, how do you pronounce your country? And he told me, and it's like, whoa. anyway, it's like after practicing a few times with him, I was able to get it, but that was 2 or 3 years back. I'm not even going to attempt it now because I know that is just not natural to the Anglo tongue. So some people call it guitar, some call it gutter. Everybody's wrong. I've never heard anybody on TV or any podcast or anywhere get close to it. But so we use however we can swing it. But hey, sometimes everybody's wrong. So again, this is Vance been questioned about this whole affair, and he was dodging the question basically. He says, yeah, we already went over that. I'm not going to go any further. So here's what the Iranians are afraid. The ones that, 80% of the Iranians were against the Ayatollah regime. But a lot of them, those actually rallied for the regime after they were bombed. Did we thwart what might have been a natural process that would have overthrown the regime? A lot of people thought they only had a couple of years left that it was going to be overthrown, especially when the Ayatollah passed away, because Ayatollah had no succession plans at the time. Well, apparently he's weighing 3 people to succeed him if he's still alive. That's debatable too. Anyway, if it's not, maybe the RGC or some other body from the priesthood, or apparently will appoint someone. It's a religious republic. It may become a military republic, but it's still mainly a religious republic. Without that being their fuel, it probably would fall apart. If it should fall apart, we'd all, mainly the people in Iran would celebrate. But even the opponents of the Ayatollah regime did not like being bombed. Nobody wants to be bombed. They were unhappy with that. So now let's get back to these sleeper cells. Finally, the FBI started monitoring possible Iran-backed cells in the United States. How about monitoring the Chinese ones too? And they made 11 arrests of Iranian nationals in 48 hours. And this one here on the left was particularly interesting because there's a couple articles on that I got to pull to your attention. Iranian army sniper and Hezbollah-linked T-man, I'm going to say T-era, arrested in U.S. as Trump warns of violent sleeper cells. Oh, yeah. I've been telling you guys about this. And where was arrested? In rural Alabama. In fact, in Blount County. Blount County. So some of these guys are in rural areas. So you've got to be on your wares. They say New York has got thousands of sympathizers. Thousands. And of course, think about Michigan. Yikes, guys. So this guy actually entered the country on a visa. Wow. How many, we got, it's believed maybe 1,200 of them came across the border during the last 4 years. And of course, I've told you guys in the past about the head of the RGC claiming he had back, 11 years ago, claiming he had 20 of our power grid substations targeted. He didn't say what else he had targeted because that was being pointed out to him. That's why I went ahead, even though I mentioned this so many times. That is why I went ahead and did the video I did on some ways to protect yourselves should the sleeper cells get activated. I mean, one of the things I might do is poison the water. So if you're on a municipal water system, which I'm not, and you go get a drink of water, you might suddenly be on the floor doing the funky chicken. And I get that analogy back from when I was in the Army. That's what we said an animal was doing when it got hit with a nerve agent. It would go into spastic spasms and expire rather fast in a very painful manner. So we called that the funky chicken. I think maybe some other people use that term. But yeah, I've seen the videos where they tested that stuff on animals. It's not pretty. There's many poisons they can put in water. Some of them, bacteria might be slow acting. It might take a while for the infection to show up. Then you're running an insane fever, breaking out with rashes, bleeding from God knows where. And they're pushing daisies. So there's a lot of things to be concerned about there. And this may not be over. Let's hope and pray that it is. Let's hope and pray that this is the end of it. But I got a bad feeling about it. And I got a bad feeling, especially given it looks like they're going to continue the program. What will they do with it? Will Israel go on again? Will we go on again? Will we decide that, well, we couldn't get them on the MOPS, now it's time to use the nukes, the nuclear buster bunkers? Would we do that? I don't know. If we use nukes, and if Iran has them, though, they would return fire with them at that point. Absolutely. If they got them, somebody's using nukes on them, they would use them back. Would that normalize the use of nukes in tactical warfare? Maybe Putin would be celebrating with glee. He would just lob a few into Kyiv, and that would all be over with. He's already said that Ukraine will be mine. So he's got more aggressive on that in his posture lately than he was before. So, and again, that could be a negotiating point he's trying to put out. I don't know. But we're playing Russian roulette with the Russians with nukes. Not a wise game. Not a wise game to be playing. So things are not all well. You got to remember, too, the drug cartels are really unhappy because a lot of their revenue has been thwarted with closing the border. So they would like to cause some mayhem. A lot of them are directly connected with the CCP, who's been funneling the ingredients for fentanyl to them and laundering their money through CCP banks in Beijing and other places. So things could get ugly fast. Now, maybe Beijing is sad because we're not getting involved over there in the ground war. They like to see us use up more of these munitions or be really intertwined somewhere else, which would make it a lot easier for them to take Taiwan and maybe the Philippines or whatever they wanted to do. Islands from Japan, there's a lot of area they claim out there. They'd love to sweep in and grab it. But the global consequences of that would be horrendous. Now, I've been querying AI about this, get AI's take on it. And the take I'm getting from AI, which I plan to do some videos on soon, is that we're going to fight. We're going to be at war with China whether we want to or not. It's just a question of when. It's not going to be, we might let Taiwan go, but if we do, we're going to face an even stronger China, and the war will be harder to win. And in fact, I've always maintained they're already at war with us. There's the economic part, there's the fentanyl part. We're losing about 100,000 Americans a year already. Think about that. It's not a pretty picture. It's not what we would want. Maybe the best thing you can do, you better prep and pray. That's what I got to say. Prep and pray. Get yourself ready. Prepare. Prep. Get yourself ready. Get right with your maker. I'm telling you what faith to follow. Just get right with your maker. Get right with your family. And do what you can to protect your family, your loved ones, yourself. And don't panic. When you panic, you lose your wits. You lose your head. Then you might literally lose your head. I tell you that all the time. But there's plenty of advice out there on how to prep. I started doing prepping content type videos, and they weren't very popular. Although that last one I put up about the sleeper cells, that's done okay. So maybe I will return to a little bit more of that down the road. I'm planning to do more turn this more into a homesteading channel and move this kind of content over to Soil Head News. But right now, I get about 4 or 5 times more views, probably 5 times more if I posted on this channel than if I posted on Soil Head. It's like a lot of views here and very little over there. We need to change that. But with all the breaking news coming out, I just thought it was important to keep it coming here for a little bit. But I do want to transition that because it really messes up the algorithms, the kind of mixed content I got over here. But anyway, so we're about to go here. I'm going to look through the comments real fast. We got a lot of people here talking. So, in fact, I'm going to take it to the computer and do it here since I'm not showing other screens. Let's see your ding, 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 ding. So it froze up. Let's see. I can scroll through here and see what people are saying. Had a good super chat from Mountain High. Oh yeah, I should see. You may have somebody lurking in the chat room that's I'm not seeing yet. So let me check with PayPal. I'll give credit where credit's due. If anybody does, I have another means of taking donations straight through my website, Green Gregs. So if anybody's availed themselves to that, I'll check it. Oh, look at this. Kim Possible. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Kim, for the great super chat. Kim Possible has donated $25. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kim Possible. Salute to you. Sometimes she don't pipe up in the chat room, but she's in the I don't know. Let me see if I see her. She might have popped up in the chat room, but she will often just toss in a donation. So thank you for that. All righty, $25 from her. Awesome. All right, so we got Ken Wilson, Captain Trips. Hey, we got Joe I-77, Hawaii Girl, Rodney from Way Down Under, Dead Wolf Resistance. All the Sun. Glad to see you, All the Sun. I'm All His Own. She's All the Sun. or I'm Alice Sun Zone. All the Sun. Anyway, well, I like to make a little wordplay sometime. F-bomb was a real mop. Oh, well, he was mad. He was mad. And I guess Benjamin Netanyahu got word of that. Either that or he put on a good show. I don't know. Let's see. Arnold Smith's not blue? What happened? Well, let's smurf on the Smith. Somebody got de-smurfed. Oh, where is my? There's my. There it is. Ding, 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 ding. Arnold, you've been reunited as Smurf. You got your wrench back. I don't know what happened there. Weird. YouTube does some strange things. Every comment. Imagine they stuck some of the centrifuges in the other trucks. Yeah, you can bet they got some of them out. Maybe all of them. You can bet they got that enriched uranium out. But what was that? What was those particles, 80-something% uranium that IAEA found? They said particles. You can bet that Iran was shuffling those around. They didn't want them. Because like I said, they have been known to move things around prior to inspections. Absolutely. Yeah, the funny thing is that there's been no radiation detected from when we dropped the buck busters. Does that suggest there was nothing down there? I don't know. The email addresses were deleted. Wow. Yeah. Ransom says it might be hiding stuff. I'd expect that. Sam, yeah, this could be just a lull before the next round. Maybe we're just reloading. I don't know. It's hard to believe that just all, we're in the middle of this thing and, it's not clear everything. Hey, Pyramid 7's in the house. Good to see you, Pyramid 7. One of my original mods. I believe Pyramid 7 was mod 2 on his channel behind Soul's Eye, Jules. And Ton Smith, Chris H. Fazioli, good to see you. Tom, Juanita. Yeah. There's Kim Possible. See ya. You're at work. Good to see you. Okay, Kim Possible. Well, thank you, Arnold, for that endorsement. And for all you come to spend a little time with the Rocket Man. How many other YouTube channels got a rocket scientist as the moderator? And I got the time, compared to all these other channels, I got a small subscription, don't get a lot of views. So y'all need to help me out. Share my videos. You need to make sure you subscribe because a lot of people get unsubscribed. I hear it all the time. Bang the bell again. Make comments in the after I get off, come back to the video, make some comments in there. That'll really help. Cha-Cha, how you doing, Cha-Cha? Yeah, good to see Cha-Cha back. We're a family, guys. We got a lot of the same people, and we normally get Timothy Bibb says that's when it came up with the C-130s, the rockless JATO motors. That's right, rockless takeoff. It's called a JATO motor. Yeah, we actually played around with some JATO motors and poured hybrid fuel grains in them, connecting them up to nitrous tank and fired them. One of our guys used to ride a rocket-powered bicycle. Well, a few of our guys, 2 or 3 of our guys did that. Shot. I got to go, guys. Dinner is ready. Okay, Rodney. Pies and mash. Is that mashed taters? All right, Rodney, slip some through the internet here. Let's chew on them some. Economic green apple. Yeah. Yeah, the sleeper cells, I don't think we're out of the woods yet, friends. I don't see us out of the woods yet because this stuff may not be over. Screen's black. Oh, I don't know. You're getting some weird stuff going on. Screen is black. Lost email accounts. All right, Arnold, I smurfed you. Say something so we can see your smurf. There it is. You got your smurf. I was wondering if it got denied again or something. Yeah, Kim Possible is a great supporter of my channel. I really appreciate that. So, Rodney, the master knife smith. So let me scroll here. What's that? And then, of course, Ransom. We'll have to do some joint videos when I get kind of settled in a little bit more. You've asked me to come on your channel. That'd be fun. That would be fun. So, wow, another super chat, Cha-Cha. Thank you for keeping us on for me. Salute, Cha-Cha. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeehaw. All right, very good. So good night then. I appreciate that very much. How long are we on? 66 minutes. All right. We don't want to go much over an hour. I did an hour and a half last time, and it really knocked down the views afterwards. So we've covered the main news. There's other stuff. I mean, there's stuff going on all over the world with Russia and China. There's a lot of news out there, but it would take me hours and hours and hours to cover it all. I do scan all this news. So we'll catch up on some of this other stuff soon enough. If indeed if things cool down in the Mideast, we'll get back to some of this other stuff. And I got some special things I want to produce, special topics I want to bring out. So, and I'm close to getting my solar done here. I'm struggling to try to get a garden going. That's a real challenge. It's real different. So y'all be seeing all that in the near future. So thank you again, super chatters. Thank you all. Thank you, mods, for keeping the channel clean. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for everybody for watching this channel. Again, please share my videos and chat with each other, and after it's posted in the chats below, and so we'll know that people have watched it to the end. Just say something crazy, sometimes I like to throw comments in so to puzzle people that don't watch the entire video. Greg, that's an interesting back scratcher. That'd be a good comment. Anyway, to leave in the notes after we post the video, and people go, huh? Anyway, all righty. So I really appreciate everyone. I really do. So I gotta hit the hay because I gotta get up in like 3 hours. I still gotta turn off my generator and scrub my chompers and do a few things too. Yeah, I have to get up early in the mornings. These late night videos are killing me. But anyway, so once again, I want to thank everyone for being here. Really do. We're family. Don't forget that. But keep your eyes wide open and head on the swivel. We don't know what's coming at us. So with that, I'm going to say to one and all, a good night, a good day wherever you are.